haven't heard an update. I don't know if you guys have any idea on Jack Ma. So there was that whole thing where, he said, hey, maybe it would be good if we were a little bit more open. And then he disappeared for a month. And then he came back and his mind was changed, which I thought was incredible personal development. But I'm curious if you guys have any idea what type of experience does a multi-billionaire have? Does he go to a camp? Is he locked at home? Is he any speculation or understanding of what might have happened there?
He was recently spotted living in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So, he kind of just appeared in Japan, but then I believe he went back to China again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the government tells you, shut up, get out of the spotlight. They probably put them under house arrest. They did that with that famous actress, Fan Bingbing, when it was a comment, like a tax thing. They disappeared her. Nobody knew where she was. Nobody, not her agent, no one. Didn't know where she was for months. And then she resurfaced. Oh, I have to pay my taxes type thing. They just disappear people. So they do probably put them under house arrest, maybe a detention center or whatever.
I don't like to be vague about this, though, because I would never know. I can't be in the shoes of a billionaire.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what I can say is concrete examples of anonymous people. I kind of keep anonymous, but people I know that open their mouth a little too big. Not as like a massive thing, like take down the Chinese government type of level, but it's caused too much of a stink in a local area. And what happened to them is house arrest kind of looks like this. You have your minders that are always keeping tabs electronically on you. So they're watching what you're doing online, on your phone, and who you're calling and who you're texting and stuff. So that's kind of a fence in its own self. I don't think people realize how unbelievably robust China's security apparatus is. But this person also would have daily visits, and we call that going for tea. That's either when a police officer or somebody in the government comes to your house, or you go to the police station and they talk to you about not only what you did wrong, but what effects that might have on your family members and people around you. And you wouldn't want anything to happen to your mother. I know your mother's sick.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want anything to happen to your kids. They really need to finish school, don't they? To provide for the family in the future. They use intimidation tactics like this. Now, if you scaled that up to Jack Ma, I couldn't tell you. I mean, he probably had a whole entourage of stuff going on.
Yeah. And he can move to Japan, but it's like, you're still not free. Like, people in China, do whatever you want out in the world. Yeah.
You can't say anything.
Just like we're never free.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad not so glad you said that. I'm sorry that that's the case. But you guys, what safety precautions have you had to take, and what have you dealt with since you were able to get, physically out of mainland China? But I know that you guys have made videos about how some of the attempts on your reputation and other things have not stopped.
Well, there's a kind of a policy we've both created, and that's not, we don't talk too much about specifics, and there's a reason. You don't want to inspire anything.
Fair enough.
Number one. And number two, you also don't want to cause anything to change tactics, because if you're on top of something, you understand how it works, right? But really, just base level intimidation started. Remember, you were talking about your story about your trying to find your wife and you via her in China. There was a bit of disassociation with some of the security apparatus in China / some of the people that are going after us, because even after I had left, they were trying to find my wife at her work and sending huge paper reports, trying to find her stamped by the government, all this kind of stuff. Therefore, trying to get to me too. But when they figured out that we were in America, they obviously sent. I just don't want to get into too many specifics, but they sent a lot of people after us. Let's just say,
yeah, we've had like actual real life interactions,
physical confrontations,
and there've been obviously people threatening, trying to dox where we are, trying to SWAT us, try to do all the usual stuff. Now the thing is, it really kind of ruins the way you do things. We used to be very open. We used to go have subscriber meetups all the time. We used to do that kind of thing. It was a big part of what we did. It was a lot of fun. We can't do that anymore. We can't actually publicly announce where we're going to be. So we have to be very careful just about the way we move around. And, if we film things, we can't let anyone know our location or the time of day or anything. So people can try to figure out where we are at any given time. So, there's all sorts of nonsense that goes along with that. I enrolled my kid in school under a different name, that kind of thing.
Wow.
It's a lot of things you have to do. It's an unfortunate. It sucks. It really does. But it's just precautions you have to take, because at the end of the day, the Chinese government and all the people that work for them, they have no morals or scruples. They just want to silence you, and they'll do whatever they can. And it's usually through intimidation, but you just don't want to take a chance.
Yeah, I will. I want to end that part with a positive thing, and we've seen a big shift. Like since we came to America, there was a very lax attitude on this kind of stuff. We've now seen things like law enforcement and stuff take this very, very seriously. And I would say to potential Chinese threats that are working for the Chinese government, that going after a U.S. person is a very bad idea right now. Much worse idea than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, they've been ramping up with the whole transnational repression stuff. You know, they've just arrested those 2 guys in New York, which is fantastic, who are involved in that police station. Because, you know, these guys do go after dissidents and after people that oppose the Chinese government. They go after them on foreign soil all the time. And so now, especially in America, they're being taken serious, and there are repercussions, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think we'll see a big shift in that. Yeah. I'd say, I can't speak for other countries, but I'd say if you are trying to speak about the human rights abuses of the Chinese government, the U.S. is probably where you want to be.
Yeah. How? I mean, it's obviously you guys have taken the precautions that you need to, and you're keeping yourself safe. How do you feel with all of that stuff? Is that a daily worry? Is it just normal life at this point? I mean, the things that you're describing, if it were just to happen to someone from one day to the next, that's a huge shift in life. Yeah. And I'm curious what the emotional experience of that is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to pretend like I'm a big, strong dude that doesn't give a shit about any of this, right? I don't think that serves any good. I do think it's important to never show people that something like this could supersede your morals, like a threat like this, right? Because that means that entity supersedes any potential person from trying to stand up against it, right? So it's not a David and Goliath scenario. I like to think of it like this. I understand the risks. I understand how it works now. I understand the burden that I've taken on, but I don't want that to make other people feel like it's not a burden worth taking on. And that's what I tell a huge chunk of our audience is actually Chinese dissidents. It's Chinese people that can't speak out against the Chinese government, whether they're in China, whether they're in America, whether they're in Europe. They reach out to us and say, thank you so much for what you're doing. And that is the fuel and the power that makes you continue to realize, hey, what I experienced those 10 years isn't a lie. What I see the Chinese government doing to hurt people all over the world isn't a lie. It's worth talking about, and it's worth the risk, and it's worth doing. Because if you're not going to stand up against tyranny, then what the hell are you doing?